The affordable retro handheld market is booming more than ever. These things feel like they're coming out every few weeks, and that's because they are. There's a demand there, and there's companies that are constantly bringing out new products because they want your money. But because these things are coming out every so often, it's very hard to find out which one is best for you, especially when they're coming preloaded, no need to map keys, and no need to install OS, which is great, but it makes it hard for us consumers to pick one for our personal preference. So I thought I'd put together a top 10 video showcasing the best retro handhelds of 2021 so far. So grab a cup of coffee, enjoy the video, and I hope you find a retro handheld that fits your needs. #10. Gameforce. The Gameforce Handheld was released towards the middle of May 2021 and has a couple of unique features compared to many handhelds on this list. This handheld is made by one guy known as Gao Feng, who has taken many months trying to build the ultimate $95 handheld. Unfortunately for him, he ran into some chip supply issues which led to the handheld coming out later than many of its competitors. The best feature of the Gameforce is the fact that it has RGB lighting behind the buttons, allowing you to change what color they are in the settings, and it has a crisp 4x3 display with a high 480p resolution. It can run everything up to PS1 games with a little sprinkle of N64 emulation, but that's about it. It's another standard handheld with average build quality and poor button quality, but the screen and RGB lighting just about keeps it on this list. This is a handheld for those of you that want something that just pops. It comes in 3 different colors, ships pretty quickly, and it looks like no other handheld on this list. Just take into consideration that you have to install your own OS and ROMs because it doesn't even come with an SD card for legal reasons. #9. The Pocket Go S30. The Pocket Go S30 was released in December 2020, rounding off the year with a new affordable handheld that can emulate everything up to PlayStation 1. What makes the Pocket Go S30 so popular is simply the price tag, coming in at just $60. This, combined with a 1.2 GHz processor, makes it on paper a good bang for your buck handheld. It's also designed to look like an original SNES controller, and even a member of the 8BitDo team got involved with the design, hence naming it after their SN30 Plus controller. It houses a 2600 mAh battery which can last up to 5 hours of gameplay, and it has flared trigger buttons at the back which are a bit different compared to others on the list, but nonetheless great. It works well straight out of the box, and that's why we like it. The menus are ready, games are preloaded, and the buttons are already mapped for you, meaning you can play with it as soon as you unbox it. The 3.5-inch IPS display is pretty large, making it good for all ages, and although it may look a little washed out, the gameplay is really fluid. This is by far the best handheld under $60 as of now, and we respect the small price tag because it opens itself up for an audience that perhaps can't afford many others on this list. 8. The RG280V. The RG280V is a vertical handheld that was released in November 2020 by Anbernic. It was a handheld we thought we'd really dislike, but it has seriously surprised us. It has a dual-core 1 GHz processor with 512 MB of RAM and a 2100 mAh battery. That basically means, again, like the rest on this list that you've seen, that it can emulate up to PlayStation 1 fairly well. What makes the RG280V so great is the small, portable form factor teamed up with a really nice 2.8-inch glass-covered display. Anbernic are renowned for doing a great job with the build quality of their products, and this handheld follows suit. And that's why you may see more of Anbernic's products towards the top of this list. Why you choose this over any of the larger handhelds is simple. It's because the RG280V is cheaper and far more portable, making it the go-to choice for those that like pocket-friendly handhelds with a little bit of power. Heck, it's even great for kids, as the sturdy build quality will last for years to come, and the easy user interface is simple for them to understand. 7. The Powkiddy RGB20. We've had a bad history of Powkiddy's handhelds, but it looks as if they're starting to learn from their mistakes, as the RGB20 is a powerful pocket handheld with above average build quality. When we say pocket, we actually mean a backpack, as this thing is quite large and to hold in one hand needs a pretty stretched grasp. On paper, it's very powerful, with a 1.5 GHz CPU, 1 GB of RAM and a 3.5 inch display teamed up with 3000 mAh of battery. This means it can play a little bit of Dreamcast, some N64, most PSP games, and, your classic PlayStation 1, Game Boy, and so on. The large 3.5 inch display is stunning and has impressive viewing angles. It may take up most of the face of the handheld, but that's because it's meant to. You'll soon realize how much you need a second analog stick though to enjoy some of the larger games. Oh, and the build quality is a little subpar. It lacks volume buttons, and the shoulder buttons at the back are pretty cramped, but the power and display somewhat makes up for that. 6. The PiBoy DMG. The PiBoy DMG by Experimental Pi is one of the best retro handhelds due to its sheer power. Inside is a new Raspberry Pi 4 with up to 8 GB of RAM capable of powering Dreamcast games and beyond. You can either buy the DIY kit to make it yourself if you have a spare Pi 3 or Pi 4 lying around, or you can go fully assembled like we did, which comes pre-built and pre-installed with RetroPie. This makes it playable straight out of the box, but be warned, this is an expensive handheld because, well, there's basically a small PC inside. The DIY kit starts at $89, but you'll need to supply basically everything, and the assembled kit costs $179. Because it's packed with power, it can handle anything you chuck at it, such as PSP, N64, Dreamcast, and more. It even has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, allowing you to connect to the internet or even stream games from your PC directly to the PiBoy DMG. This is a handheld for those of you with no budget and for those of you that really like tinkering around with RetroPie. 5. The Powkiddy RGB10 Max. I know what you're thinking, all of these handhelds have really weird names. Yes they do. The RGB10 Max is Powkiddy's first dive into an affordable handheld featuring a larger 5.5 inch display. The shell used has this rubberized matte finish to it which adds a premium feel. The large 5.5 inch display is welcomed even if most games don't use its normal aspect ratio. The analog sticks are identical to that of a Nintendo Switch, the action and D-pad buttons are bouncy, and it genuinely feels like a sturdy handheld. It's actually somewhat impressive from Powkiddy. In terms of specs, it has a quad-core 1.5 GHz processor, 1 GB of RAM, a Mali 31 GPU, and 4200 mAh battery capacity. It can emulate everything up to N64 flawlessly, with little hiccups. It's once you start trying to emulate larger N64, Dreamcast and PSP games when things start to get a little choppy. Our only downfall with this handheld's design is that the screen used is slightly dimmer than most we are used to, and the shoulder buttons are very poor quality. But this is a handheld for those of you that want a larger screen for an affordable price. Number 4. The RG351P. The RG351P was released in October 2020 and was extremely popular from there on out. It can power everything up to your average N64 game, and we say average because we start to see a dip in performance when you play larger N64 games like GoldenEye, etc. Anbernic are known for their build quality. The shell is strong, the analog sticks used are comfortable, and the bright 3.5 inch display is absolutely gorgeous. Inside is the familiar RK3326 chip, which is basically featured in most of the handhelds on this list, so you're going to get the same power throughout. The main reason the RG351P is ranked so high on our list is due to the pick up and play factor of the handheld. Some handhelds on this list require you to tinker with the settings, but this one works straight out of the box with a clean user interface and preloaded games. We absolutely love it, and although it can't play Dreamcast or PSP very well, everything else is a pleasure to play on. Number 3. The RG351V. The RG351V was released in March of 2021 and is Anbernic's best vertical handheld on the market today. It has a 3.5-inch display that fits most retro games in its native resolution, as it has a crisp, detailed 4:3 ratio display, which is why many retro gamers absolutely love this device, even if it does look a little plain. And again, it comes with the RK3326 chip, a 1.5 GHz processor, 1 GB of RAM, and a 3900 mAh battery, which means you can get a good 5 hours gameplay out of it and even play N64 quite smoothly for those 5 hours. What's even better is that this console comes preloaded out of the box with thousands of games and has Emulation Station already installed, so you don't have to set up anything. Everything is ready out of the box, no mapping of keys, no installing firmware, just pick up and play. Number 2, the Retroid Pocket 2. For $85, this is one of the best retro handhelds to come out of China, and it's proof that the Analog Pocket has some cheaper, probably better competition. The Retroid Pocket 2 can emulate up to N64 and PS1 games very well, and because it has an Android OS, you can download emulator applications, normal Android apps, and even use their NetPlay feature to play co-op with another Retroid Pocket 2 user. It's a well-made, good-looking handheld, and it comes with 4 shoulder buttons, 2 analog sticks, a quad-core 1.5 GHz CPU, 1 GB of RAM, and a large 4000 mAh battery. The 3.5-inch IPS display has a resolution of 640 by 480 and is incredibly bright, making it very saturated and crispy, which is something you need in a portable handheld like this that plays retro games. It's smashing other handhelds out of the park for quite simply being the best performing handheld on the market for $85. Many users are managing to get Dreamcast emulation running well, but to do so you will need to tinker around with settings, as it's definitely not a pick up and play out of the box type of handheld. This handheld requires research, patience and key mapping in order to get it to its potential, and that's why it's just fell short of our number 1 spot. And last, but definitely not least, number 1 is the RG351M. The RG351M is by far the best retro handheld on this list, and it's made by the big dogs known as Anbernic. This is nearly identical to the older RG350P, but with some pretty big changes and a small $40 pay bump. This RG351M can play all of your old school games up to N64 flawlessly. It has a metal shell which adds a much needed premium feel to those affordable handhelds. It has a 3.5-inch IPS display, superb build quality, 4 shoulder buttons and USB-C charging. The 1.5 GHz CPU keeps frames looking silky smooth and allows you to touch on a majority of the best N64 games. But where this prevails is below that. For true fluid performance, we advise playing retro games up to and including PS1 and N64. This is where the handheld is unbeaten in performance. It's just an all-round incredible handheld, but why it sits at number 1 in our list comes down to the build quality from the slab of aluminium used, and the fact it's ready to play out of the box with no key mapping, no needing to install firmware, just makes it easy for newcomers to understand. If you want the best retro handheld of 2021 so far, it is definitely the RG351M hands down. You will not be disappointed. If you enjoyed this video, hit subscribe, and if you want to support us even further, we do have a Patreon page which gets you early access to videos and exclusive giveaways. As per usual, catch you in the next one.